Oh man, you guys won't believe what happened this week. My special newly documented ant species, our pet Meranoplus bicolor ant colony, which I've been raising from just a single pregnant queen ant over the past few months, was finally ready to move into their brand new lavish home that all of you voted for and chose for them in last week's episode. An epic open concept island terrarium ant farm. Wait until you guys see what I created. So I was thrilled to finally move our ants onto their new island home, which I made sure to craft with care. What could possibly go wrong in a situation like this? Well, what ended up happening completely freaked me out and showed me, as usual, that no matter how carefully I plan things for my ants, there are often unexpected outcomes. Welcome to the AntsCanada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC family. Enjoy. Let's start from the beginning. Here lay our beloved ant colony. I'm pleased to announce that they finally have an official name based on your over 4,000 votes from last week's episode. You guys have chosen the name, the Spades. I rather like that name, seeing as their gasters look like shiny black spades. Thank you to all who voted. We will from now on call this ant colony the Spades. So as mentioned, the Spades have patiently been waiting for their new home, as they've just about outgrown their current AC test tube plus test tube portal setup. Now this was extra monumental for the colony, because for the first time in their very lives, the ants would be touching and residing in soil, as they would in nature. So, since you guys had voted for the Spades to move into an open concept island terrarium, I began brainstorming this week and came up with an idea. Behold, the empty shells into which I, your creator of worlds, would be crafting the future home of our Spades. It's essentially two glass bowls, one which will hold the island, and the other which will just be a sort of filler. You'll see what I mean in a bit. The first thing I needed to do before anything else was remove the inner bowl. Then we needed to add our ant barrier, some talcum and alcohol. Carefully, I painted the mixture onto the sides of the bowl. If you're new to ants, this barrier, once dried, is super slippery for ants. Well, most ants anyway. Other common ant barriers include petroleum jelly and oil, but I find both these fail to keep tropical ants within their setups for some reason. But just a note on this talcum barrier, the talcum layer needs to be replaced every few months, as the ants remove microscopic bits of it every time an ant slips off it. Alright, now let's put this aside and allow this to dry. Next, I grabbed the smaller bowl. First, a drainage layer. I used crushed coral, but any kind of coarse medium like pea gravel or pieces of crushed ceramic pot would work. I find all my terrariums that incorporate a drainage layer tend to do better. It allows excess water to drain safely into a spot that won't waterlog creatures and plants living in the upper soils. Plus, it prevents anaerobic spots from developing in the terrarium, which can be toxic for many life forms. Alright, next, placing the smaller bowl into the bigger bowl. Then pouring decorative white sand around the outside of the smaller bowl to fill the space. This white sandy space will act like the ant colony's foraging area, where I can place some of the ants' food, and the ants can find it and gather it to bring back to the nest. I need to keep this area completely dry so the ants don't decide to nest in it. Next, I added plants and potting soil. I chose a nerve plant and ferns for this island terrarium. I didn't want to overburden the space with a ton of plants, because the ants will ultimately need to dig into these soils and establish a nest. The plants here would be great at eating up all the nitrates produced by the ants' waste and poop. I added rocks, cocoa peat above the potting soil for extra digging medium, stones around the border of the smaller bowl, pieces of sphagnum moss, some sticks, and voila! Our open concept island was complete. What do you think? I find it kinda looks like a dessert. It is a sweet terrarium though. Let me show you around. The island is a lush forest-type habitat with plants, sticks, stones, nesting area, and a foraging area for our spades. I can't wait to see the ants living in here. There's even some climbing area for the ants. Now at first glance, the soil pit area might not seem like a lot of space for the ants to nest in. But don't be deceived. There is plenty of space for the ants to nest. Remember the space of the bowl? The top area of the surface is only the smaller exposed area. Beneath it, the digging area expands a lot. So there is indeed a deceiving amount of room to nest on this island below ground level. Alright, AC family, and now the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's move the colony in. I grabbed our spades. They were chilling calmly within their test tube home. Little did they know, we were about to blow their minds with a brand new kingdom into which they would move and call home. Ready? Let's remove the test tube. Oh wait, almost forgot. Hang on, needed to do something first. We needed to create a starting burrow to encourage the ants to start digging into the medium and hopefully move in. There. Couldn't wait to see the ants moving into this hole. Alright, and now it was time to disconnect their setup and place them over the hole. The sudden exposure to openness and strange new smells got the colony into a bit of a panic mode. The brood had begun to slide out of place, and the workers seemed a bit dazed, unsure what to do at first. Workers soon began to scramble to move all the brood back, as I tapped remaining ants from the test tube portal carefully onto the island to rejoin the colony. It wasn't long before workers began to explore our starting hole. Yay! Love when things go as planned. Or so I thought. Brood continued to slide onto the ground, and workers came along to bring them back to the safety of the colony, deeper in the test tube, where the queen lay. She was calm and composed. I loved how assured the spades were in their ability to handle this home destruction crisis. And then, as I'd hoped, the ants began to move pieces of digging medium. Yes, the ants were beginning to dig the hole deeper and customize it for nesting. By now, ants were already beginning to explore the area around the test tube. I was certain the new lands were blowing their minds. Because remember, all these ants knew prior to this was their test tube and their test tube portal. The ants were finally beginning to see these lush territories we made for them as their new home. I watched for a good several minutes to see what the ants would do. But for now, it seemed the ants weren't willing to move into the soils just yet. Perhaps they were still customizing it first before moving the queen and all the brood inside? I decided to leave the colony exposed to light and decided to come back the next day to check up on the colony. But what I ended up discovering made my heart drop into my stomach. The next day, I came back to the island, and this is what I saw. Interesting. They piled digging medium into the test tube. Okay. Did they just remain inside the test tube and just move digging medium into the test tube to make it dark? I checked the test tube, and though there was a lot of cocoa peat in it, there was no colony in sight. The spades had moved out. I removed the test tube and saw two little holes. Great, I thought. So the ants officially moved into our starting hole and made it a bit smaller by breaking the opening into two entrances. That's cool. So knowing the ants had moved into the digging medium, I placed down a drop of honey, since I knew the ants were craving for some sugary food, seeing as they likely needed the extra energy after a strenuous colony move. I just couldn't wait to see the ants trailing from the two holes. Once news of the honey drop made it back to the nest. At least, that's what I thought would happen. It wasn't long before an ant discovered the honey and began to drink. Then a second. A third. And a fourth ant. I waited patiently for the ants to fill up so I could catch them running back to the nest. Finally, one ant, after having its fill, began covering the surrounding area with pheromones. Then, moved to disappear over the edge of one of the stones. To my surprise, though, that was the last I saw of the ant. No ant seen running back to the 2 holes. What? Wait, where was the colony? Pretty soon, a group was seen feeding around the honey, but still no trail in sight from the 2 holes. Okay, were the spades actually in these 2 holes? I began to wonder. And then, I watched as another full ant disappeared over the same stone edge, and again, failed to make its way to the 2 holes back there. And suddenly, out of nowhere, another ant appeared on the scene to drink from the honey. Okay, AC family, something was up. I pivoted the terrarium a bit. And lo and behold, that was when I would get my answer. In a very discreet location, hidden just under the stone edge the ants were disappearing over, was a hole into which the ants were entering. Aha! There was the nest. Interesting choice of location, but I was not mad at this. For the next hour, I watched the ants drink from the honey, then disappear into their nest hole. I was just happy that it looked like our spades had officially approved of these mighty, lush lands we created for them, even if they didn't nest where we initially thought they would. But as ants have shown us time and time again on the channel, you can lead an ant colony to a home, but you can't make them dig. In fact, look, it seems some ants have even begun to dig into the dry sands. Interesting. Can't wait to see how else the ants decide to utilize the amenities of their new island territories. Speaking of which, AC family, this island home of our spades needs a name. Let me know your name suggestions for this island terrarium in the comments, and I will choose my top 5 favorites for all of us to vote on in a future video. I was just so thankful the colony was safe and okay. I couldn't wait to watch the colony grow bigger and more powerful from here on in. And once the ants outgrow this island, we can then move them into a new home. Great work, AC family. I'll be sure to keep you all updated on the progress of our spades as we continue to be part of their ever-epic life story. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to be part of the fun. So until we revisit the spades living in their new island sanctuary, thank you all for watching and supporting the ants. It's Ant Love forever.